Hi, and welcome to the sheet editing and creation tutorial for One More Multiverse. I'm Janie, I'm the main dev behind Sheets, and today I'm going to go all in depth on the sheet editing interface and how to make your own new kinds of sheet templates to support new games. So I figured the best way to do this, to show off this tool, would be to make a new character sheet. So I'm going to be making a sheet for Heart, the City Beneath. This is a really cool game by Rowan Decker that I really enjoy. And so let's get started. So to make a new sheet template, you go here to the Sheets pod, you click the plus, you click New Sheet Template. You can also access this in the back end in the collections view, but I prefer the in-game interface for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a title, an icon. These icons and the colors are basically what determines what shows up on the sheet card, the sort of little card view there. So this area down here is basically where we create the actual sheet layout itself. So sheets are made up of all these different blocks. It's a drag and drop interface. So this up here is all the different types of blocks that you can drag in. And then so to add something to the sheet itself, we're just going to drag from this bar down into the sheet area itself. So I'm going to start off with just a header here. I'm just going to do heart in big letters just to sort of mimic this header up here. And I think to start, I'm just going to build out this left column, and then we'll go back and build out the right column. So I'm going to start with some short text. These short text blocks are perfect for these specific just types of inputs. So I'm going to go ahead and create one for name. And then by clicking this, I can just duplicate the block right below it. So that's super useful for what we're doing here. Class, calling. And then for active beats, it sort of has these multiple lines here. So there's multiple different things that you can sort of determine there. So I'm going to swap, instead of using a short text, I'm going to use this long text. The long text, the difference between these is the short text sort of only gives you this one line to work with, whereas the long text gives you this bigger text area. So that's what I'm going to do here. Also, I'm going to resize this block. So blocks, they can be multiple sizes. So you can either, make them smaller or bigger. I'm going to make this slightly bigger so that the player has more room to work with here. Another thing is that you can notice when I'm working with blocks right down here at the bottom, it's kind of can be annoying when I'm resizing them because it's changing the whole size of the sheet as I go. So what I'm going to do to help with that is if I just add a spacer block here at the bottom, it'll just make things a little bit easier to work with, give me just a little bit more space. So just a little tip I like to do. I'm going to check out the block settings here. So if you go to, there's two things in the block settings. There's the content, which sort of determines some things about okay, how is this block being displayed and how can you interact with it? For instance, long text, you can make these read only in game. So let's say there's a big piece of rules text on this page that I want to be on the sheet, but the user doesn't have to, the player doesn't have to edit that ever. I could set this to be read only. For right now, this is an entry, so I'm going to leave that off, but I am going to go to the styles menu where I can change all sorts of different styles for everything about this block. I can change the spacing, I can change the background color of the block, and I can change some things about the text here. For instance, so for active beats, I'm gonna keep this on the top, I think, but if I wanted, I could put it on the bottom. I could hide the label entirely. I could, change the alignment here. But I think for right now, I'm gonna keep this all the same for this block. I'm gonna duplicate this to make the equipment. And one more time for resources. I think we should be all set with that. So now we have all of these skills and domains down here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so I can see this better. For these kinds of checkbox lists, I'm going to be using this list block. It has, just like I indicated, a bunch of checkboxes. So it's really important when you're using this system to pay attention to where the edges of the block are. So you can see this sort of like faint dotted line around the block. When you hover over it, you can see the block boundaries, but there isn't any sort of limit on the actual content itself, which means that, like, look, right now this list is outside of the bounds of the block. This isn't nice. It's going to cause like issues later on. If we want to place a block below this, it's going to get messed up. So just make sure that you're keeping track of how big the actual content of the block is and resizing it if necessary. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit in these here. To do these knacks is going to be a little bit harder. So we don't have a list block that is like editable by the user to like do some sort of text entry here. So instead, I'm going to get a little bit smart here in terms of how I'm using these blocks. So first I'm going to add a short text block up here, and I'm going to go to the style, move the label to be on top, and then go here, change it to knacks. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a bunch of short text blocks and hide the label. So this way, what I can do is have each of these line up correctly with these list elements here. And all of these will be editable so that you can type in these knacks in game and edit them as needed, just as you would on the normal sheet. So even though we don't have like a similar like list object that works perfectly for this block, you can always get a little bit smart, play with the settings, hide some labels, turn these blocks into just like smaller bits of what you need, and then stack them together to create new functionality. But we're always like also taking like input on, you know, what kinds of blocks we should be adding, what we should be working on. Like if there is a block that you absolutely need in order to like support a certain type of game, you know, come into chat, let us know, come into the closed beta channel, and we can try and figure something out that's going to work. So for instance, for the 5E sheets, which I've been working on for a little bit now, we added things like the skill list, the action list, things like that. We have some more game-specific blocks like the harm table for, you know, Forge in the Dark games. So we do add blocks. Occasionally we are like working on building out this list. It's just a matter of when we can find time to do it. So now that I've created this skills, hang on, I'm going to name this skills. Going to do the same thing for the domains. Probably just going to duplicate this, move this over here. One thing that you'll notice is there are these little eye icons next to each of these entries on this list. This is used for hover text. So let's say that we want to like add a description to these skills. Like, okay, what do you use compel for? You can use this hover text to make this information just like readily accessible in game just by hovering over these eye icons. So by default, when you're editing, they will always show up even if there's nothing in them. And then the way that you add hover text to a block is you hover over one of these eye icons and then you type in compel. So in this case, it's used to like charm or persuade another character. And so now if we go to the preview view, you can see here, there's this eye icon, you can hover over it. Oh, this is what compel does. This is really, really useful. We've set this up on some of our Forge in the Dark sheets for actions, and generally it can be very useful as a way of quickly and easily accessing rules information while in game. So I highly recommend that you add this. But for right now, I don't have the full rules text for all these in front of me, and we're not really going to use these sheets yet, so I'm not going to go through and do this, but if I wanted to, I could go through and do this on my own time. Next up is, I'm going to start on this right column over here. So first we have all of these different checkboxes here. For these, I'm going to use the counters block. Counter blocks are really useful for these specific types of entries. If I wanted, I can change the, the counter type here. I'm changing this to be teeth. Probably going to keep them as these little checkbox counters for right now. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In this options, I can type in how many I need. So here I need 10 options. So we have 10 stress to spend. This is blood. Duplicate this, mind. And then I'm going to do the same thing for protections. So I'm going to drag in a counter block. I'm going to hide the label on these so that it just is just this block here. And probably what I'm going to do is I want to add a short text up here. Short text can be used if I hide this label and then I change the body text to be, let's make this larger, bold, and all caps. And then I can change this to just look like a protections. So I'm going to turn this into, and then if I make this read only, then there we go. We just have this little bit of text here. And I'm going to go ahead and add a spacer up here so that these line up nicely. Another cool thing you can do with counter blocks is you can connect them to health. So this we've done with Blades in the Dark sheets. So for instance, when you like add stress on Blades in the Dark, it'll take away from your character's health. The way that we do that is we have connect to health and inverse health on. If we had it inverse health off, it would be like, okay, all of these are full when you're at full health and you take them down. But for Blades in the Dark, it works better if you do the inverse health. But this doesn't really make sense for this game because we have like all these different types of stress. So for right now, I'm just gonna leave it. And next up, abilities and fallout. Abilities looks to me just like a perfect case for the long text block. And same thing with fallout. If I wanted to, I could definitely get fancy with this and turn the abilities block into a feat list block. The feat list block, if I go here, feat list is great for these specific kinds of like, okay, you have like a bunch of different like abilities. So, you know, this is like, we use this in like Blades in the Dark for specific feats, you know. So I'm gonna do like not to be trifled with, you know, and you can say like, you know, you can take on a small gang, but you count as a small gang, you know. So if I wanted to, I could do this, but the only downside of this is that, you know, these also aren't really editable by players in game. So, and in, you know, Heart, you're always picking up new abilities and, you know, adding them over time. We could do this just with having the players go into the editing mode themselves and edit this, but for right now, I think it's probably functional and fine to keep this just as the abilities block here. And then with that done, actually, hang on, I'm gonna do some cleanup here. So this is what the sheet looks like. Now that I've done some cleanup on it, I think this is gonna be pretty usable. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit save here. And now if we go and select a new sheet, I can search for Heart. And there we go. The new sheet template that we made is now a fully blown sheet, ready to be used in game. So we have a basic version of this Heart sheet finished, but let's say we come back and want to add like a general like notes section, you know, for players to take notes during game. This first sheet, this first page of the sheet is getting a little bit cramped. I don't really want to add like a whole nother section here onto this. So what I'm going to do is add a new tab. You can add tabs to sheets just by going up to this tab bar here, clicking this, add a new tab. I'm going to enter the name, say notes. On the notes page, I'm just going to add one big long text. So this way, you can do this. So now, if I go ahead and pull up this Heart, the City Beneath sheet that we have, I hit sync to template, you can see it's added this new notes tab. So now in game, I can go between the notes the main tab and this notes tab here, take all the notes that I want on the section. Hi, hello. So that has been part 1 of sheet editing. I'm going to come back and do a part 2 where I just run through all the different types of blocks to give you a better idea of just what the options are available that we have right now. So keep an eye out for that. And then I'll be back again with a part 3 to go over sheet views, how to embed sheets in other sheets, and how to use them on different parts of the platform. keep an eye out for that as well. In the meantime, good luck editing your own sheets, and yeah, hope you have fun.